There's been a decent amount of discussion lately on resistances in Diablo 2, so I figured a nice breakdown would likely help a few people as they dive back into Diablo 2, either the original or resurrected in the very near future, since frankly it's convoluted as hell. In this video we'll be looking at the 6 damage types and what does and does not impact them. First up, what are the damage types? The most obvious ones are listed on your character sheet: fire, cold, lightning, and poison. The two unlisted ones are physical and magic, which function fairly similar to the other four. While a few of the elements have special traits outside of damage, resistance does nothing to those as long as the target isn't immune to the given element. In terms of the meat of resist, we will start with the simple parts first. With each of these, resistance percent mitigates damage done from each of these elements, whether it's from charms, auras, passive abilities, etc. For example, resist lightning boosts lightning resist, natural resistance on the barbarian boosts fire, lightning, cold, and poison resist, where salvation only boosts fire, lightning, and cold. For players, the 4 resists listed in the character sheet have a normal limit, after all factors are taken into account of course, of 75% on each of these, unless that limit is increased by items or passive bonus from certain paladin auras like the aforementioned lightning resist, or resist lightning, sorry. Obviously, with the resistance penalties in Nightmare in Hell, it will also take a lot more plus resists to reach the 75% point because of the lower starting points, which are fairly drastic with 40% and 100% reductions in their given difficulties. As far as the unlisted resists go, these are also limited in a fashion, with magic resist having only one source of percent resistance, the safety shield, so hard cap is kind of pointless, and physical damage reduction, also known as damage reduced by percent, is being limited to 50% for the intents of normal damage. At 100%, you actually become immune to crushing blow, but you do not get additional damage reduction. Obviously, these rules do not apply the same to the monsters and enemies and stuff like that, so you will see slight differences and they can actually get immune and their caps are a lot different. As far as damage reduced by X and magic damage reduced by X, these are fixed reductions by the listed number of a specific damage type, sort of. Damage reduced by X reduces physical damage first, and while it's uncommon, can actually bleed over into the other damage types, but will only do physical first. Whereas magic damage reduced by X will focus on magic, fire, cold, and lightning damage first, reducing incoming damage of each of these types by the amount listed. For example, if you have magic damage reduced by 10 and you get hit by an attack that deals 10 cold and 10 fire damage, you'll actually take 0 damage, where if you get hit by 20 fire damage by itself, you'll take 10. And last, we should mention Absorb. Absorb basically heals for the amount in addition to negating it, so if you have 20% fire absorb and take 10 fire damage, you actually take 8 fire damage, then heal for 2, which results in only taking 6 damage. So it can be quite effective, even more so if you're using Absorb by a fixed amount instead of percent. It is worth noting that Absorb percent is limited to a maximum of 40%, so above that is pretty much useless. If you're curious about what order these are applied in, it's flat damage reduction first, like damage reduced by X, then resistance percents, like lightning resist, and then finally absorb, in that order. So no, you cannot have absorb kind of preclude the resist, and having high resist does reduce the amount of health gained from absorb, but you can never hit that 100% immunity mark unless you have really high flat damage reduction to just negate it completely in the beginning. Now, as far as the more convoluted stuff and what usually throws people for a loop, we have all the messed up terminology the game uses, as well as how it determines immunities on enemies, the latter being oddly simpler than the former, with the game basically looking at enemy resists and doing everything in its power to prevent enemies from having more than 2 immunities, including negating plus resist from enemy abilities if it would cause this problem. That's why if an enemy is immune to cold and fire, but also lightning enchanted, they'll still sometimes be relatively easy to kill with lightning since they may not have gotten the resist from that ability due to this protection against triple immunes being in place and preventing that from going over a certain threshold. If they have really low lightning resist though, it will still add it to it because it will not risk causing another immunity. In terms of what different abilities boost resist on enemies, some are fairly obvious, with lightning enchanted boosting lightning resist, fire enchanted boosting fire resist, etc., with spectral hit and magic resistance providing multi-elemental buffs against fire, cold, and lightning, and stone skin providing boosted physical resistance, if it won't make the enemy triple immune, of course. In terms of resistance to poison and pure magical damage, there are no random modifiers that can provide these resistances to enemies. What they have at base is basically what they will always have. There are A few little asterisks sitting there though, at least for poison, because there is a hidden poison enchanted attribute, but this is only presented on Akmel in the Throne of Destruction and Lilith in her Pandemonium event. So it might as well be a fixed stat for them rather than an actual attribute, but that's how the game treats it. In terms of player-oriented resistance concerns, there is some confusion that floats around, but we'll hit the 6 high points. At least these are the high points for me and the ones that I run into the most in comments and stuff like that. First up, Warcry and Shockwave both do physical damage, so no, they are not an answer to physical immunes, but they can still stun them even if they are physical immune. Second, Amplify damage does not double physical damage. It reduces enemy physical damage resistance by 100%. So if they already have, say, 25% physical resistance, it then becomes negative 75% resistance. Third, Holy Bolts do indeed do magical damage, but they also bypass magic damage resistance, meaning they are a good hammered-in tool for magic immunes if you don't want to use Smite, like say you want to stay at a range. Fourth, while Conviction and Lower Resist both lower enemy resistances, Conviction only lowers Fire, Cold, and Lightning resist, while Lower Resist lowers Fire, Cold, Lightning, and Poison resists. No, there is no way to reduce pure magic resistance, unfortunately, so you kinda have to just go with it. Fifth, only 4 skills can break immunities, and they do so at a reduced rate. Those are Amplify Damage, Decrepify, Lower Resist, and Conviction. If a resistance is not broken, your other effects that lower enemy resistances will not work. And number 6, minions like Valkyries and Golems can become immune, sometimes easily so, even if they don't display it. That is why they tank so well, so do not overlook giving your minions some sort of resistance or resistance boost, or re-rolling that Valkyrie to make her get good rolls on her randomized equipment. If you have questions or think I missed something important, go ahead and comment down below and I will do my best to reply to it in a timely fashion. If you found this helpful, go ahead and hit that like button, and if you want to see more guides, go ahead and hit that big red subscribe button. It helps. It really does.